single day I'm gonna make something great. That's my way. Every single day I'm gonna make something great.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today's tutorial is going to be on Billie Eilish, and as you can see I'm using Adobe Draw application. So the main thing you need to do first is to pick out the canvas size and the format you want the picture to be. Click on the plus sign, click on image to add the image you want to cartoon. The next thing you want to do is to bring down the image layer below the draw layer. On the left hand side, pick the second brush, reduce the color to black and turn off velocity dynamic. Then you can start tracing out the picture how you want it to be. Reduce the brush size to a size you're comfortable with, and also reduce the opacity of the image. Go back to the draw layer and trace out exactly as I'm tracing out. If you don't understand how to trace out image, you can check out my tutorial on how to add line. I'll be dropping the link in the description below. When outlining, you can change the brush size if you don't feel comfortable with the type of brush size you're using. It all depends on your personal preference, but I wouldn't advise for you to go for a very big brush size. So just keep it minimum and just trace out only the outline. Once that is done, the next thing I'm going to do is to add a new draw layer below the first layer. I'm going to use this for my face layer. I sometimes do the face on the same layer as my outline, but because I'm trying to make everything organized, so when it comes to my painting and shading, it will be very easy for me to do. So that's why I'm having the face layer below the outline layer. So I'm just tracing out all the features on the face, which is the eyes, the nose and the mouth. So if you also need tutorials on how to do all this, you can also check out my other videos, which I'm going to drop in the link in the description, so do check it out. So now the next thing I want to do now is to add another layer. This layer I'm going to use for my eyebrows. The why I do this for the eyebrows, because the eyebrows is a complicated feature for me to do. So it took me a long time before I could get used to drawing out eyebrows. So that's why I always have it on a different layer. Once that is done, I'm adding a new layer for the hair, and the hair is supposed to be below the main outline because of some features I need done on the outline are obviously above the hair. So now I'm naming all the layers so I don't get it complicated. I have to name them, and so it doesn't mix up with whatever I'm doing. So whenever I want to go back to any layer, I can always go back to them. So now I'm back to the hair layer. What I do first is to increase the opacity of the image so I can get the exact color I want. So I'm going to drag my brush to the base color. I'm picking out a base color, not the highlighted part, not the highlighted part or the darkest part, just the base of the color. Then I'm reducing the image layer so I can trace out where exactly the hair pattern falls. So what I'm doing now is just tracing out the hair, not necessarily the highlighted part or the darkest part. This is just the base color, so I'm just adding the base color. So everything that looks like hair, that's what I'm tracing out here. Always say, once you're tracing, always make sure the lines are connected, so you can always auto fill by pressing in the enclosed area, so it doesn't have to be like you're shading it manually. So after I was done with the side of the hair, now I'm going to the upper part of the hair. So the edges, you reduce the brush size and trace out little strand. This is going to serve as the edges of the hair. So as you can see, I'm doing it that same way. I didn't trace it out like plainly, so I traced out the edges and I'm tracing out the top of the hair now. in order for me to also fill in the hair, I need to make sure the lines are connected. So that's why I'm drawing a line so it could make it look connected. But as you can see, the hair is not looking very realistic. So I reduced the brush opacity, and I'm also blending in some of those areas so it makes it look realistic. And also I reduced the brush size so I can add some couple of strands outside of the hair shape so it could make the hair also look realistic. So once I've gotten the base of the hair done, I need to add a new layer which is going to serve as the shade of the hair, and I will go back to the image layer, turn it on, increase the opacity and pick out a darker shade from the hair. Then what I do with a reduced opacity of the brush size, and I'm going to increase the brush size to my preference, anyhow you want the brush size to be. So just stroke out any parts with darker shade from the hair. Do not stroke out on the highlighted part. Anywhere you see that the hair is dark, just stroke out that part, and do the same thing for every part of the hair, just the darker part only. Now the hair is beginning to look realistic. For it to look more realistic, I added a new layer on top of the hair base and the shade layer. I'm going back to the image layer again to pick out the highlighted color from the hair. So once I've picked out the highlighted color from the hair, I'm also going to stroke out only the part which is highlighted from the hair, just following the reference from the picture. Just stroke out only the highlighted part and make sure the opacity of your brush is reduced so it doesn't look complicated and it doesn't look fake. Reduce the brush size and stroke out only the highlighted part. Now that I'm done with the hair features, what I do is to merge down all the hair features together into a single layer as hair. Then, as you can see, I'm done with the hair. So the next step I want to go into is to duplicate the first layer and use the layer below as the part where I'll be coloring. So the upper part is going to serve as the outline of the face, the lower part is going to serve as the coloring. So I'm picking a base color from the eyes and I'm going to fill in the eyeball area with that base color. And once I'm done with that, I'm also going to use the first brush, which is going to be for my blending. I'm picking the brighter color from the eyes, and I'm also going to increase the color because I want the eyes to pop out. So I'm going to add some little stroke of highlighted color into the eyeball. So this is going to be like the color of the eyes. There are different patterns for making eyes, so I also have a video on that, you can check that out. And why I'm also adding a brighter color is to make the eyes pop out really. Then once I've added the proper color, I'm going to darken the base color and also add that as the shade of the eyes. So I'm doing that to both sides of the eyes, as you can see. Then once I'm done with that part, I'm adding a new layer below that layer so I can add the white part of the eyes. You don't have to make the eye look completely white. Just for best illustration, pick out colors from the image. That way it's going to be better, and just shade out color out exactly the parts you've seen that is white in the image. So once that is done, pick out the color from the corners of the eyes. These corners of the eyes, you're going to use it to shade out the eye the eye so it looks realistic and not just very cartoonic. So we shade out the corners of the eyes so to make the eyes look realistic. And remember, when you're shading and blending, you have to reduce the opacity of the brush. This way it makes it look realistic. So I'm done with the eyes part. The next thing I do is to go to the main outline layer, turn on the image layer and add a new layer on top of the main outline. I'm adding a new layer on top of the outline because I want to paint in the inscription written on the hairband she's having on. So I'm picking the color, the same color as the color from the inscription, and I'm tracing out all the shapes so I can get the letter Billie into the picture. So I'm doing that on a layer above the main outline. Now that I'm done with the inscription on the hairband, I'm going back to the main outline layer. So I'm going to turn on the image layer again so I can pick out the base color of the hairband, and I'm also filling in that color into the hairband because my lines are connected when I trace it out, so that makes it easier for me. So I've also filled in the hairband and I'm done with the hairband colors. So I finished up the lips and the rings off camera because it's going to take a long time for me to finish that. But if you want a tutorial on how I made that ring, you can comment down below. So I'm going to make a special tutorial on that. So you can make the video faster. That's why I did it off the camera. So the next feature I want to add is the skin layer, and the skin layer is going to be below every of the layers I've done before, and I'm picking out a base color of the skin. So you have to pick a base color. Do not pick the darkest part, just a base color, and add in the color whatever way you feel like it's okay for you. So now I'm going further into the skin, and I use the simplest method I do, which is the base color, and I'm going to add a new layer on top of the base color of the skin. And the new layer I added is for the shade of the skin, which is the same pattern I did with the hair really. So I'm just going to also pick out a dark color from the skin base, the same way I did with the hair. Just pick out a dark color, but I would advise not to pick out the darkest color, just a shade. Then later on, when you're not comfortable with how the shade is, you can also make the shade darker. But for the main time, I'm just picking out a dark shade, but not the completely dark shade, and I'm blending in that color. I reduce the opacity of my brush. Always remember, reduce the opacity and shade in only the parts in the image that is dark on the shade layer. Don't forget, shade in only the part that is dark on the image from on the base on the shade layer. So in order for this cartoon to look realistic, I'm going to add the red tone from the skin, because I noticed that the original image has a little bit of red tone. So for it to look realistic, I reduced the opacity completely because the red tone isn't that prominent in the picture. It's prominent but not so much. We don't want her looking all flushed, so we are adding just a little bit of red tone into our skin. And once that is, for me to have like a proper guidance of what I'm doing, I duplicated the image layer and transform it beside the drawings I've made so that I can know where to add the red tones and where not to add the red tone. I think I'm done with the tones and the shade, and I'm adding the highlights into the image. I'm going to do the highlights on a new layer. Always remember, add new layers when you're adding new features. So I'm picking out the highlighted color from our nose because I can see some light reflection on the nose area. So I'm using the same first brush and reduce opacity and also the brush size depending on how zoomed in you are into the picture. So I'm adding the same highlight I saw in the image into the drawing I'm making. So the nose area has like some shiny light reflection on it, so I'm doing that into the image, and that's it once you're done. And thank you guys for watching my videos, and if you don't understand anything fully and you want a slower version and a deep down detailed version of whatever I'm doing, always comment down below and tell me exactly the part you don't understand so I can go slower and focus on that features alone. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and share this video. Thank you all for watching.